Captain Li Wujin pressed his palm against the cold metal of the observation deck, watching Earth grow smaller in the vast darkness. The blue marble that had been humanity's home for millions of years was now just a fading bee behind them. His chest felt heavy as he thought about the billions they had left behind. "Sir, you should see this," Lieutenant Park Soyoung called from the communications station. Her voice was tight with emotion as she monitored the final transmissions from Earth. Static-filled reports told. The same story everywhere: the dying sun's radiation was cooking the atmosphere, turning one-screen continents into lifeless deserts. "Captain," Lee walked back to his command chair, the weight of 50 million sleeping lives pressing on his shoulders. The bridge of the New Dawn hummed with quiet activity as his crew managed the massive evacuation fleet. Through the viewport, he could see the other 11 colony ships stretched out in formation like giant metal whales swimming through space. "How? Are our passengers?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "All cryopods show green," Captain Park So-young replied, checking her displays. "Or 42,000 souls aboard our ship alone, all in stable deep sleep." The other ships report similar status. Commander Kim Tae-hein looked up from the navigation console, his face illuminated by the blue glow of star charts. "Courses locked for the Kepler system. Our new home awaits, sir. 200 years might seem long, but for those sleeping, it will feel like closing their eyes and waking up tomorrow." Lee nodded, remembering the final days on Earth. The panic in the streets. Children crying as they were separated from grandparents, too old for the journey. The lucky ones were now sleeping peacefully in their pods, dreaming of a new world. "Up some unusual gravitational readings on our long-range scanners. Might be worth noting for the log." Lee walked over to examine the data. Space was full of mysteries, and their route would take them past several uncharted systems. Probably just a dead star or asteroid field. "Mark it and send the information to the other ships. We don't want any surprises." What none of them realized was that the gravitational readings came from something far more dangerous, a rogue neutron star. Its immense gravity well was already beginning to affect their trajectory, pulling the fleet slowly but steadily off course in the medical bay. Rows upon rows of sleeping pods stretched out before him, each one containing a human life frozen in time. Families slept side by side, mothers and fathers, children clutching stuffed animals. Elderly couples holding hands even in their artificial sleep. "Sweet dreams," he whispered to a sleeping child whose pod was decorated with drawings of spaceships and alien worlds. The doctor had no way of knowing that the child would sleep not for 200 years, but for 800, that when she finally opened her eyes, the galaxy would be a completely different place. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the Vaxxery had evolved from simple traders to galactic overlords, their silver ships controlling the major trade routes between star systems. Their empire stretched across 3 spiral arms, built on commerce and careful diplomacy. The insectoid Cleth had burst from their hive worlds like angry hornets, echoed across 100 battlefields as they carved out their confederation in the galaxy's outer rim. The ancient Morvani. They retreated to their magnificent crystal cities, floating in the void between galaxies. Had gone silent centuries ago, its radio signals fading to nothing. If any records remained, they were buried in forgotten databases. Marked as another extinct species among thousands, Admiral Yoon Hijin's flagship Eternal Wanderer led the human fleet deeper into uncharted space. Her ship's computers faithfully executed their programming, maintaining life support and navigation while their creators slept. Automated systems recycled air and water, repaired minor damage, and sent status reports to empty command centers. The rogue neutron star's gravity grew stronger with each passing year, bending the fleet's path like a river changing course. Should have been a straight line to the Kepler system became a long, spiraling arc toward the galaxy's edge. The ship's computers, designed for normal space navigation, became decades. Decades became centuries. The sleeping humans drifted through space, while empires rose and fell around them. Their ships became ghost stories whispered in spaceport bars, Mysterious vessels glimpsed at the edge of sensor range, only to vanish when investigated. The galaxy moved on, forgetting that humanity had ever existed, never knowing that 50 million sleeping souls were about to return and change everything forever. Commander. Choi Min-ho's eyes snapped open to blaring alarms and flashing red lights. The cryopod's lid hissed as it opened, releasing 800 years of preserved dreams into the cold ship air. His body felt like frozen metal, every joint screaming in protest as he tried to move. What? ... What's happening? Voice, barely a whisper. The warming gel that had kept him alive all these centuries dripped from his skin as he struggled to sit up. Of awakening. The ship's computer spoke in a calm female voice that contrasted sharply with the chaos of warning lights. Emergency revival protocol activated. All senior officers report to stations immediately. Hull breach detected in Sector 7. Unknown vessels approaching. Min-ho's training kicked in despite his weakness. He grabbed the emergency clothes from his pod's storage compartment and dressed quickly, his fingers fumbling with simple buttons. Other crew members were doing the same, all of them moving like newborns learning to walk. On the bridge, his command chair, his legs still shaking from the long sleep. The man who had been 45 when they left Earth looked exactly the same, but his eyes held the weight of knowing that everyone he had ever known outside this ship was now dust. Report, he called out, his voice getting stronger with each word. Lieutenant Park So-young was bent over the navigation console, her face pale as she studied the displays. Captain, I don't know how to tell you this, but we're lost. Really lost. These star patterns, they're not in any of our charts. The computer estimates we've been traveling for over 800 years. 800 years? Lee felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible. The journey was supposed to take 200. The automated logs show our path curved away from the Kepler system about 50 years into the journey. We've been drifting through unknown space ever since. Ensign Kong Dongwoo's voice cut through their shock. Captain, we've got company. 3 ships approaching fast, and they're not human designs. The main screen flickered to life, showing sleek vessels that looked like they were grown rather than built. Their hulls curved and flowed like liquid metal, covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. Energy readings showed power levels that made their own ships look like candles next to searchlights. Sir, they're scanning us, Dongwoo reported, his voice tight with tension. Deep scans, going right through our hull. They're mapping our entire ship. Open a communication channel. Let's find out who our neighbors are. The alien response came immediately, broadcasting on multiple frequencies in languages that sounded like music. The universal translator worked overtime, finally settling on something resembling English. The main screen shimmered, and an alien face appeared. Lee had to fight not to gasp. From within, 4 arms moved gracefully as it operated controls beyond the screen's edge. And its large dark eyes held intelligence that made Lee feel like a child. Unknown vessels, the alien spoke, its voice carrying the authority of absolute power. You are trespassing in Vaxery space. Lee took a deep breath, knowing that his next words might determine the fate of 50 million sleeping humans. This is Captain Li Wuzhen of the Earth's colonial fleet. We are peaceful refugees seeking safe passage to establish a new home. We mean no harm to your people. The alien's expression changed, shifting from authority to something like confusion. Earth. Did you say Earth?
Yes.
We are humans from the planet Earth in the Sol system. We left our dying world centuries ago seeking a new home. The alien was silent for a long moment, its 4 hands moving over controls that created patterns of light in the air. Finally, it spoke again, and this time, its voice carried disbelief. Earth went silent 8 centuries ago. That dead world produced nothing but primitive radio signals before falling into silence. You are either pirates using false identities, or you are mad. No species from that backwater system could possess vessels of this sophistication. Park So-young leaned close to Lee's chair. Captain, they think Earth is dead. To them, we're ghosts. Before Lee could respond, More alien ships began appearing on the sensors. Word was traveling fast through whatever communication networks these beings used. Within minutes, ships from different species were arriving. Some looked like living creatures with wings and tentacles. Others were geometric shapes that hurt to look at directly. Sir Dongwu called out, "I'm detecting at least 12 different ship designs now. They're keeping their distance, but they're all scanning us." Commander Kim Tae-hein looked up from his engineering console, sweat beading on his forehead. "Captain, our other ships are reporting the same thing. The entire fleet is surrounded by aliens, and they're all talking about us like we're impossible." The Vaxery captain on the screen was speaking to someone off camera in its own language, musical tones rising and falling rapidly. Lee caught fragments through the translator, words like ghost fleet and temporal anomaly, an archaeological find. Captain Lee, the alien, finally addressed him again. "If you truly are from Earth, then you are the first humans to be seen in the galaxy. For 800 years, your species is considered extinct. You are. How do you say ghosts returning from the dead?" The bridge fell silent, except for the hum of life support systems. The crew exchanged glances, the full weight of their situation settling in. We're strangers in their own galaxy, refugees from a dead world in the eyes of civilizations that had grown and changed while they slept. Lee looked at his crew, seeing his own determination reflected in their faces. They had survived the death of Earth and 8 centuries of drift through space. They would survive this, too. "Then I guess," he said, his voice carrying new resolve, "it's time the galaxy learned that humans are very much alive." The Galactic Council chambers on Centauri Prime were a sight to behold. The massive dome stretched hundreds of meters overhead, its transparent walls showing the swirling purple nebula that surrounded the planet. Representatives from dozens of species sat in their designated sections, each area designed for their unique biology and needs. Captain Li Wujin had never imagined he would stand in such a place. The translation device clipped to his ear buzzed constantly as dozens of alien languages filled the air. To his left stood Lieutenant Park Soyoung, her diplomatic training making her invaluable in this moment. Commander Kim Tae-han flanked. His right, his military bearing impressive even among beings who towered over him. High Counselor Vexstar rose from the Vaxery section, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. His silver skin caught the light from the nebula, making him look like a living statue. "Honored colleagues," his voice carried across the chamber through speakers that translated his words into every known language. "We face an unprecedented situation. These ... humans claim to be from a world that died centuries ago." A ripple of clicks and chirps came from the Cleth section. Ambassador Krexmal stood on his 6 legs, his insectoid head tilting as he spoke. The archives show Earth's final transmissions were received 812 years ago. Radio silence followed. Standard procedure classified the world as extinct. Lee stepped forward, his voice steady despite the enormity of the moment. "Honored representatives, we are not ghosts or imposters. We are survivors. When our sun began to die, we built these ships to carry our people to the stars. A gravitational anomaly pulled us off course, and we have drifted through space while you've built this great civilization." The chamber erupted in multiple forms of laughter. The Vaxery's melodic chuckles mixed with the Cleth's mandible clicking, and sounds from species Lee couldn't even identify. But it was the Morvani representative who spoke next, her crystalline form shimmering as she communicated through pure thought that the translators converted to speech. Young flesh beings, her voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. What could primitives from a dead world possibly offer civilizations that have thrived for centuries without you? Park So-young stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over. We offer fresh perspectives, new technologies, and the accumulated knowledge of a species that survived planetary death. Our ships may look primitive to you, but they have functioned perfectly for 800 years with minimal maintenance. High Counselor Vexstar's expression showed polite disbelief. Came perpressive claims, but we have heard similar boasts from countless species seeking favorable trade agreements. What proof do you offer? Before Lee could respond, an urgent transmission crackled through the chamber's communication system. A Zentari security officer appeared on the main display, his reptilian features twisted with concern. "High Counselor, we have a situation. The Black Star pirates have launched a massive attack on the human fleet. 300 vessels under captain. Velcros are moving to capture the refugee ships. The chamber fell silent. Every representative knew about the Black Star pirates, a ruthless organization that had terrorized the outer systems for decades. Their ships were fast, heavily armed, and commanded by beings who showed no mercy to anyone who crossed their path. "It is unfortunate," Vexter said with what sounded like genuine regret. "But the human ships are outside our protection zone. Council protocols prevent us from intervening in pirate activities beyond our borders." Lee felt his blood turn to ice. 50 million people were about to be slaughtered or enslaved, and these advanced beings were going to watch it happen because of bureaucratic rules. "We have to get back to our ships," Kim Tae-han whispered urgently. "There is no time," replied Park So-young, checking her communication device. "The attack has already begun. 3 light years away." Commander Choi Min-ho was coordinating the human fleet's defense from the bridge of the escort frigate Guardian. The pirate ships had emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of angry wasps, their weapons already charging. "For the kill. All civilian ships maintain formation and continue your jump preparations," he broadcast to the colony vessels. Military escorts form defensive perimeter. "Remember your training." The pirates had expected easy prey. Refugee ships were usually defenseless, filled with desperate people and outdated equipment. What they found instead were vessels that moved with surgical precision, their formations shifting like a living organism. "Pirate Captain," Velcro snarled from his command chair as he watched his advanced scouts explode in balls of fire. "What kind of weapons are these primitives using? Our shields should stop anything they have." His tactical officer, a scarred veteran of 100 raids, stared at his displays in confusion. "Sir, they're not using energy weapons at all. These are kinetic projectiles, but they're hitting us in patterns. They're not trying to punch through our shields, they're making them vibrate." On the Guardian's bridge, Minho smiled grimly as he watched the pirate formations break apart. Human engineers had studied shield technology for centuries during their long journey, learning how energy barriers worked and how to defeat them. "Target the lead cruiser's shield generators," he ordered. "Fire sequence Gamma 7, the human." Ships unleashed a coordinated barrage that looked almost primitive compared to the pirates' flashy energy weapons. But each projectile hit at precisely calculated points, creating harmonic resonances that made the pirate shields tear themselves apart. Velcros watched in horror as his flagship's defenses collapsed. Impossible. No one has used resonance warfare. In 500 years, they're using our own shield frequency against us. His officer screamed as more explosions rocked the ship. Every shot is perfectly timed to amplify the harmonic distortion. The battle lasted exactly 47 minutes. When it was over, half the pirate fleet was destroyed, and the rest were fleeing in panic. Not a single human ship had been lost. Back in the council chambers, the representatives watched the battle footage in stunned silence. The elegant Vaxery, the proud Cleth. Even the ancient Morvani stared at displays showing primitive kinetic weapons, tearing apart some of the galaxy's most feared pirates. High Counselor Vexstar was the first to speak, his voice carrying a new note of respect. "It seems we have underestimated you, Captain Lee. Your people fight with tactics we had forgotten existed." Lee looked around the chamber, seeing the change in every alien face. Fear, respect, curiosity, but no longer dismissal. "We are not primitives," he said quietly. "We are survivors. And we have much to teach this galaxy about the art of not giving up." The galaxy had just learned that the Ghost Fleet was very much alive. It's very dangerous when threatened. Major Shin Hai-1 wiped the sweat from her forehead as she watched the morning sun rise over New Eden, their first permanent settlement on Kepler-4 for 2b, 6 months ago. This had been nothing but red dust and jagged rocks. Now green fields stretched to the horizon, dotted with strange alien trees that had somehow learned to grow alongside Earth crops. "The soil readings are incredible," called out Dr. Lim Jae-sung as he emerged from the agricultural lab, his hands still dirty from examining plant samples. "The wheat is growing 30% faster than it ever did on Earth. And the alien fungi are actually helping it absorb nutrients. Shin smiled as she watched human children playing with small, harmless creatures that looked like purple rabbits with 6 legs. The local wildlife had been cautious at first, but human patience had won them over. Now these creatures, which the children had named hoppers, were helping to pollinate the human crops. A shadow passed overhead, and Shin looked up to see a Morvani research vessel landing at the spaceport. Dr. Zexamalon emerged from the crystalline ship, her body shimmering in the sunlight like a living prism. She had been visiting the human colony every week, fascinated by their methods. Major Shin, the Morvani scientist, approached, her voice carrying the sound of wind through crystal caves. I must ask again, how do your people achieve such rapid terraforming? Our own colonies require centuries to establish proper ecosystems. Led her to the edge of the agricultural zone, where human engineers were working alongside alien creatures that looked like walking tree stumps. Dr. Zex Malin, watch how Engineer Park Minjon is working with those Grox creatures. He's not trying to control them, he's learning from them. The Grox were native to this world, ancient beings that could manipulate soil chemistry through their root-like feet. Instead of driving them away, the humans had offered them trade protection from predators in exchange for helping prepare the soil. Your people fought their environment for millennia, Dr. Lim explained as he joined them. We learned to cooperate with it. See that bacterial culture? It's half Earth microbes, half native organisms. They're working together to break down the planet's mineral deposits and create rich soil. Dr. Zex Malin's crystalline form pulsed with colors that indicated amazement. This is revolutionary. You're not terraforming, you're creating hybrid ecosystems. The implications for galactic colonization are enormous. Meanwhile, in the orbital trading station above the planet, Captain Park So-young was in the middle of negotiations that would reshape galactic commerce. The conference room was filled with representatives from 6 different species, all arguing over trade routes and profit margins. The problem, Park explained, standing before a holographic display showing shipping lanes throughout the galaxy, is that you're all competing instead of cooperating. The Vaxari control the inner systems, the Cleth dominate the outer rim, and the Zentari hold the core worlds. But look what happens when we connect your networks. She manipulated the display, showing how human-designed distribution hubs could link all the major trade routes. Instead of 3 separate economies, we create one integrated market. Yes, you'll have to share some routes, but the total volume of trade increases by over 60%. High Merchant Velteron of the Vaxari leaned forward, his forearms crossed. Skeptically, what prevents one species from dominating this network? Built-in balance points, Park replied, highlighting specific stations on the map. Each hub is jointly operated by multiple species. No one group can control more than 30% of any route. It's not about who wins, it's about everyone winning together. The Cleth representative, Trademaster Crixlon, clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Your species has a curious approach to business, Captain Park. Most civilizations seek to maximize their own advantage. We learned something during our long journey through space, Park smiled. Survival isn't about being the strongest, it's about being the most adaptable. The most adaptable strategy is cooperation. 3 months later, the first integrated trade convoy was moving through space, carrying goods from 12 different worlds. The profits were staggering, and more importantly, former enemies were now working together as business partners. But it was the crisis in the Helix Nebula that truly demonstrated humanity's unique approach to problem-solving. The Cleth Confederation. And the ancient Morvani had been moving toward war for months over mining rights to a rare crystal that both species needed for their technology. General Yun Hajin's ship, the Peacekeeper, dropped out of hyperspace between the 2 massive fleets. Her small vessel looked insignificant compared to the Cleth war hives in Morvani. Crystal ships that faced each other across space. Human vessel warlord Krexthar's voice crackled over the communication channel. You are interfering in Cleth affairs? We have 10,000 warriors ready for battle. What can you possibly do to stop us? Hyjin's response was broadcast to both fleets. Warlord, I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to ask why you want to fight over something you could share. The Morvani fleet commander, Crystal Singer Mordith, responded with harmonics that translated as laughter. Young human, the Cleth seek to strip mine the sacred crystals. There can be no compromise. What if there was a way to harvest the crystals without damaging them? Hyjin asked. What if the Cleth could get the materials they need while the Morvani could preserve the crystal formations they consider sacred? For the next 6 hours, Hyjin shuttled between the two fleets, carrying proposals and counter-proposals. She brought Cleth engineers to meet with Morvani crystal singers, facilitating conversations that hadn't happened in centuries. The breakthrough came when a young Cleth technician named Vexkol realized that the Morvani's harmonic crystal singing could be used to separate useful minerals from the sacred crystal matrix without damaging either. The Cleth would get their materials, the Morvani would keep their sacred sites, and both would profit from a new mining technique. Commander Kim Taehan watched from the bridge of the Peacekeeper. The two fleets began working together instead of preparing for battle. General, how did you know they could find a solution? Hyjin smiled as she watched Cleth and Morvani ships docking together for the first time in their history. Kim, every conflict has a solution if people are willing to look for it. The problem is that most species are so focused on winning that they forget to ask what everyone actually needs. Within weeks, the Cleth-Morvane alliance was signed in trade, agreements that made both species richer than they had ever been. The galaxy watched in amazement as ancient enemies became partners. All because humans had asked the right questions. Dr. Zexmalin summed it up best during her final report to the Morvani Council. The humans possess something we have lost in our long civilization, the ability to see possibilities where others see only problems. They are not more advanced than us, but they are more flexible, more willing to change. The galaxy was learning that humans brought more than just new technology or military tactics. They brought hope that old problems could have new solutions. Ambassador Choi Minho adjusted his formal diplomatic robes as he walked through the corridors of the new Galactic Council, building on new harmony. The walls were made of living crystal that the Morvani had grown specifically for this structure, while the engineers had designed the climate systems and Cleth artisans had crafted the decorative elements. It was a building that represented everything humanity had achieved, bringing different species together to create something beautiful. Through the transparent walls, he could see the city of New Harmony stretching toward the horizon. Human architects had worked with alien partners to create something unprecedented, a city where beings of completely different biologies could live and work together. Baxari merchants operated shops next to Cleth engineers, while Morvani crystal singers performed in parks where human children played with alien companions. Nervous? Asked Dr. Park So-young as she joined him at the entrance to the main chamber. She wore the insignia of the Galactic Trade Commissioner, position created specifically for her after her revolutionary. Trading networks had increased prosperity across dozens of worlds. A little Minho admitted. 5 years ago, we were refugees begging for safe passage. Today, we're about to become full members of the Galactic Council. The chamber doors opened with a soft chime, revealing the most diverse gathering in galactic history. Representatives from 37 different species filled the curved seating areas, each section designed for their specific needs. The aquatic delegation from the water worlds floated in specialized tanks, while the silicon-based crystalline assembly communicated through patterns of light that danced across their translucent bodies. High Counselor Vexstar is now an old friend rather than a suspicious interrogator, stood at the central podium. His forearms moved gracefully as he addressed the assembly. Honored colleagues, today we welcome a species that has transformed our galaxy in ways we never imagined possible. The Terran Federation has earned their place among us, not through conquest or coercion, but through cooperation and innovation. Applause filled the chamber, not just the polite clapping of humanoid species, but the harmonic resonances of crystal beings. The rhythmic clicking of insectoid delegates, and sounds from creatures so alien that the universal translators could only approximate their expressions of approval. Minho stepped forward to the speaking platform, looking out at faces and forms that 5 years ago would have seemed like creatures from nightmares. Now they were friends, colleagues, and partners in building a better galaxy. 5 years ago, our ships drifted into your space as refugees from a dead world, he began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. We asked for nothing more than safe passage and a chance to build new homes. What we found, instead, was a galaxy ready for change, ready to reach for something greater than any of us could achieve alone. From the observation deck above, Admiral Li Wujin watched with pride. The scared captain who had awakened from cryosleep to find his people lost and alien. Space was now a confident leader of the Terran fleet. Beside him stood the officers who had shared that terrifying first contact. Now they were leaders in their own right. Commander Kim Tae-hein wore the uniform of the Interspecies Defense Force, military organization that included soldiers from a dozen different worlds. His innovative tactics had been adopted by species who had been fighting wars for centuries, showing them that victory didn't always require overwhelming force. Major Shin Hai-1 had revolutionized terraforming across the galaxy. Her techniques of working with native ecosystems instead of replacing them had turned dozens of marginal worlds into thriving colonies. Planets that had been written off as uninhabitable now supported millions of beings from multiple species. "Look at that," whispered Lieutenant Commander Kang Dongwoo, pointing to the gardens visible through the chamber's transparent walls. "Remember when we thought aliens would be monsters trying to destroy us?" Lee smiled as he watched the scene. Below, human children were playing a game with young Vaxari, their silver skin gleaming in the sunlight. Nearby, Cleth youngsters taught human teenagers how to create musical sounds with their natural mandibles, while Morvani crystal children grew small light sculptures that delighted kids of every species. "We were so afraid," Lee replied. "We thought the galaxy would see us as invaders or primitives. Instead, they were waiting for someone to show them new possibilities." In the main chamber, Minho was concluding his speech. The Terran Federation formally accepts membership in the Galactic Council, not as conquerors seeking to impose our will, but as partners committed to building a future where every species can thrive. The applause was deafening. Even species that communicated through chemical signals released clouds of colorful compounds that the air filtration systems interpreted as expressions of joy and approval. As the formal ceremony concluded, delegates began mingling in the reception areas. Lee watched Trademaster Crixlon of the Cleth approach. His mandibles clicking in the pattern humans had learned meant happiness and respect. "Admiral Lee," the insectoid being said, "when our species first encountered yours, many of us feared you would upset the natural order of things. We were right to be concerned, but wrong about what that would mean." "How so?" Lee asked, genuinely curious. "We thought change meant chaos and conflict. Your people showed us that change could mean growth and opportunity. In 5 years, the Cleth Confederation has established colonies on worlds we never thought habitable, using techniques your botanists taught us. Our trade partnerships have made us wealthier than our greatest war victories ever did." Dr. Zexmalin of the Morvani joined their conversation, her crystalline form shimmering with patterns that indicated deep satisfaction. "The humans have given us something we crystal singers thought was lost forever, the ability to be surprised. For centuries, we believed we had seen everything the galaxy could offer. Then you arrived and showed us new ways to grow crystals, new harmonics for our songs, new partnerships with species we had ignored for millennia." The party continued long into the night, with beings from across the galaxy sharing stories, technologies, and dreams for the future. Human musicians played alongside Vaxari composers, creating music that no single species could have imagined. Scientists from a dozen worlds collaborated on projects that promised to unlock new frontiers of knowledge. As the celebration wound down, Admiral Lee stood on the observation deck one final time, looking out at the city of New Harmony. Starships from dozens of worlds filled the orbital stations, their crews working together on missions that would have been impossible just 5 years ago. "We did it," Park Soyoung said as she joined him. "We actually did it." "Did what?" Lee asked. "We came looking for a new home and ended up helping the entire galaxy find one," she replied. "Every world, every species, they all have a place in this new community we've built together." Lieutenant Commander Dongwu approached with a data pad showing the latest reports from human colonies. Sir, the quarterly integration reports are in. 37 species now have permanent cultural exchange programs with human worlds. 17 new joint colonies are under construction. And the Unified Defense Treaty has been signed by every major power in the galaxy. Lee nodded, but his attention was drawn to something simpler and more profound. In the park below, he watched an elderly human woman teaching a group of alien children how to plant earth flowers in alien soil. The children came from 6 different species, but they all worked together with the patient guidance of someone who remembered the world that humanity had lost. You know what the most amazing part is? Lee said to his companions. We didn't change the galaxy by being stronger or smarter than everyone else. We changed it by showing everyone that they could be better than they thought possible. The galaxy had indeed trembled when humans awoke from their long sleep. But it hadn't trembled in fear. It had trembled with the excitement of new possibilities, new partnerships, and new hope for a future where no species would have to face the darkness alone. The sleeping fleet had wakened to find a galaxy set in its ways comfortable with limitations and old rivalries. They left it transformed, vibrant, and reaching for new heights that none had imagined possible. The refugees had become catalysts, and their greatest victory wasn't conquest, but cooperation. In the end, 50 million sleeping souls had done more than find a new home among the stars. They had helped the entire galaxy remember that the best solutions often came not from conflict, but from unexpected friendship and the courage to try something new. The end.